I remember working on a painting with Mr. Gamble, an imaginative painting. I'd remind you again that it was indicated to me that Mr. Gamble would not assist in helping me with imaginative paintings till I'd been there some 5 years maybe or something like that. I don't know whether that was a thing or not at some point in his career, but in Gamble's training, but or uh, atelier, time. But certainly he was eager. As soon as I said anything about it, he was eager and he was there for me. And so that's the first thing. But so one of the assignments he gave me was Medusa. Sorry. Jason, the Golden Fleece. And I had come up with a scheme that would include the tree with the famous fleece on it, and the ram's fleece, I guess, and something of a field and a dinosaur type monster on it, the dragon, whatever. And and I was searching for a color scheme, and I said, "Well, I'm so brilliant. Let's make it impressionistic." And I began, and I laid in the entire thing in these happy yellow, grassy field colors and sunshiny effects on bodies and stuff, and I almost cried. It was so pathetic. It worked so poorly. Um, but what I'm going to show you today is somebody who's done that with imaginative work in a way that really, really works well. This guy's name is Arthur Spear. I'm going to lead you through that from NC Wyeth, and we'll talk about who Arthur Spear may have associated with it, gave him his impressionism. But let's first thank, we got 5 of you guys at once this time. I think that's higher than usual, but it's much appreciated. Linda Jen, Ilya F, Adam C. I think that's right, Ilya. Adam C. H, Stephen J, and Pascal G. Really appreciated. Some of you have been in touch with me on by email. I do enjoy doing that, so don't hesitate to keep it up. I enjoy our conversation. I don't have so many that it's a burden yet, but and I do once if it's more comfortable in some way to bring me questions or to be sure I get the questions via the email, please please go that route. I am looking for more questions as we speak, sort of, and I have 2 or 3 others still cooking here, so it's not like I'm at sea as far as what to bring you. However, the my idea is to be there for your ideas. So this one today is the a response to numbers of people who have asked me to talk more about imaginative impressionism, and and so the way I was doing it, with Gamble was in the class of using impressionist colors, which I had been rather trained in a bit, as much as Brackman was good at that, and then and just applying that to drawn figures and that sort of thing, and that's pretty much what both of these guys. Well, what I'm showing you NC Wyeth as well, but what Arthur Spear in particular does. Before I go further into this, we are having a sort of a, what would you call it, retrospective of my studio. I'm finally about to be gone from Massachusetts forever, hopefully forever. And yet I have a few people still wanting to be teaching there and in the Lawrence studio still. So I'm hoping that that we'll be able to keep those studios going with accessibility to you guys who are in that area. But I think my driving time is over. I'm working on doing something up north, and so, but as a sort of, it feels like rather a swan song that we're having Whistler House, which is a museum in Lowell, Massachusetts, has allowed us, or has produced for us actually, an exhibition of the works of students of mine from the past bunches of years. Actually, all the way back to the very beginning. There's 2 or 3 of Lindsay's pictures there. Lindsay Harkness, who I tell you, hi Lindsay, who I tell you was the key to me even doing this at all, her requests, and then her ability to put together a studio arrangement where I had several people to work with at once, enabling me to afford to do it. So that, and then many people in between. It's a whole panoply of people and whole different kinds of things they've done over time. But the one thing I'm very pleased about is how many of those people I've worked with continue to paint right through their lives, and haven't wound up rather in the way of the modern art schools. I think the number is 85% of the people who go to modern art schools are out of the arts. They say, I don't know what these polls mean, for good within 5 years after their graduation. I'm pleased that that's not the case with most people I know. They're still painting and improving. But so a thank you to Whistler House. And the 2 pictures I'm going to focus on, or a couple of the pictures I'm going to focus on in relation to Arthur Spear, are their pictures. And as we were dropping off pictures for their show, I was able to review again what they had, and I was impressed again. Arthur Spear looks like he's coming out of the Boston School background, but he isn't. He's a New York, the Art Students League, as a matter of fact. It seems to be significantly his background. And the one person who was working there, a guy maybe 15 years senior to him, and I suspect he was teaching there at that time, was a guy named Dumond, Frank Vincent Dumond. So I'll show you a little bit of his work as well. But I wanted to introduce you this whole subject with, and by the way, I'm not trying to be definitive. I'm just doing this because the impressionist look, the broken color, sunny effects, that whole thing. It's really what I'm talking about more than the idea of impressionism in the sense of a slice of life. Imaginative paintings don't do that. That's not what imaginative painting is. So what they're doing is they're borrowing information from you might say, the color lights theme of impressionism since Monet, and using it to make pictures. And NC Wyeth is right up there with those guys, really enjoying doing that. The picture on the left in this frame is amusing to me because of its similarity to Boston School guys, Tarbell and actually all 3 of them have painted girls in white dresses, which I'm not going to be showing you, but for comparison or anything else. But you can see that the theme is, you might even argue that's a bit of the impressionist mindset. It really isn't. I mean, so much of this just travels right through the ages, as you all know. Okay, but in any case, impressionist, broken color, looking for light, all that sort of thing. So there's NC Wyeth. And that group of pictures with the guys with the scythes up in the upper right, that was favorite stuff of mine when I think I might have still been in high school when I first ran into NC Wyeth's pictures. And what impressed me about them was that sense of the heat of the day sort of thing that he was achieving. His approach to the landscape isn't, it's obviously that of an illustrator. He's trying to draw the plants, shapes, and all those things. It's very important for him. But he's also a minimalist, rather, if you put it that way, from the point of view of, he's a little bit more like Millet from the point of view of the amount of detail he brings to a face and that sort of thing. He isn't primarily trying to bring expression to faces. He's trying to do it with the whole figure. And he's got a monumental look to him frequently, as that figure on the left suggests, fully suggests Millet and maybe the reaper, the sower. But again, you can see the background of that picture has the sense of a full spectrum kind of treatment, and a bit of broken color and all that sort of thing. Pink clouds, the whole thing. It's it feels like it's impressionistic. The one on the right, obviously a little less so, but still I don't know. I shouldn't even say that, a little less so. It's just that amount of drawing of objects sort of, isn't characteristic, certainly of Boston school thinking, certainly not Monet either. And then here he's doing it in an imaginative, well, they're all imaginative pictures, but here he's doing it in what would look like Robinson Crusoe on the bottom left, and at the bottom left, the left picture, and Robin Hood in the one that says Getty Images. Thank you, Getty Images, for letting us use that without permission. But you can see that they are operating like in the upper one in particular, operating on a shallow value range thing that's typical of certain impressionists, or even guys like Kenyon Cox in those few moments when he does impressionist treatments. I should have brought you some of his just to show you what he does. He draws a figure and then does it. I think I've showed you that in some other videos, so if you're paying attention, you'd notice it. But this is Arthur's Spear. And as opposed to what I did when I was trying to make, I had a theme that didn't have this playful levity about it. It's rather a little bit dark. There's a lot of, there's poison involved and sleeping potion or whatever. But there's a lot more seriousness to the Jason and the Golden Fleece story. And when I kept the color out of it, it actually seemed to emote that quality better. But one of the beauty, I think, of Arthur's Spear is that he's using impressionist touches, the broken color, the sort of evasive lines, the lack of hard, continuous lines as a great unifying mode, format, whatever, to create unify. But you can see that what it does is it creates unity. So this is a superb job of taking Impressionism and making an imaginative painting do whimsical. Even other, this really presents that level of a fantasy world. That sense of things rather, evasive to the touch, sort of, in the sense of you have a tale, a fable, a story, and it's just, it's a mystery. It's out there in the vapor, and it's, and he keeps that spirit, of the story with his use of what we would think of as with a means that is bent on the search for truth. So it's really fascinating how well this works. But definitely it's a tribute. Obviously, it's a tribute to his posing figures and that sort of thing as well. But for a work like this, and by the way, you've all probably seen some of these. I know in all your countries there are painters who do paintings like this. I don't know them all, but I've seen hints of them in certainly in European countries, and I'm betting in South America as well, and elsewhere. So I'm not promoting these to show you something about the Boston School. This is light-based. This is a beautiful sense of light, daylight, and and it's broken color. I'll show you more of that in the next one. But just enjoy that. Looks like I want another one of those Thulin Murphy frames. I wonder if that's the case. I know Spear spent time in Boston. I don't know how much time or when he came up, but all his education, I think, was in New York. Let me jump us down to this Durand before I show you these pictures, because I want to show you his background. So this is, Durand, Frank Vincent Dumond. But Frank Vincent Dumond was highly thought of, and I believe that they refer to his way of working as the prismatic, something, the full spectrum all the time model was his. And numbers of people are fully influenced by it. But you can see in the rocks just down here, which I probably should have blown up, how much color there is in this area. It's clearly the search for all the color in a prismatic way. But our guy is totally obvious. If you look at the rock, for example, you can see red, yellow, and blue in every passage on this rock. So I've commended that thought before, the idea of broken color. But this, whatever they're doing, and I understand there's still some people who operate. I've never seen any work of any contemporaries of mine that do this. But it sounds somebody was indicating somewhere that there was a school that's still operating somewhere that teaches Dumans' thinking about the full prism, the full spectrum. A full spectrum way of painting. Whatever this guy is doing, he's got a remarkable unity. I'm reminded in this picture of how when he's doing this rock, which you could call a pink rock, he's getting, like you'd say with Sargent with his wallpapers and numbers of those pictures, like the nudes, he's getting the red, yellow, and blue from other areas of the painting all through this area. So it's as though he's using, and this might be my interpretation. I don't know I haven't studied that way of thinking that these guys talk about, the full spectrum thing. But it makes sense, though, in the sense that I accept the idea that I'm trying to use red, yellow, and blue all the time. This guy is doing it in a much more impressionist way, that in that sense that it shows, every spot shows another color as well as but it's dominated by for example, it's greener here and bluer over here. But you can see that this whole area here is red, yellow, and blue, and there's a little bit bluer in here. And passages of red, gold, whatever, they show up. And what they do is they produce this sense of a weaving, which is what I'm saying creates that great sense of unity through a picture. So even when there's greens here and there's greens here, but there's greens in the neutrals. And that's what you're really expecting in us if we're working this way. You'd expect that. And that's one of the reasons I like this as a Boston School kind of reference. This guy is special. This guy, I always took him, by the way, when I saw him many, many, many years ago, when I first saw him, I took him to be Boston School because his colors were so plausible in the Impressionist sense. So, but it's different. Now, here he is taking, though, a painting and making up all sorts of fishes and sticking them in the pictures. Presumably he's using, if he's not just his imagination, he's using photographs or something to get those fundamental references, the shapes, whatever. I mean, Gemmell did that at times with critters that he didn't have access to. That is a use of photography that I don't have doesn't give me any pain, shall we speak. And by the way, particularly it doesn't give me any pain if you actually are a master of the visual world, of nature itself. That what difference does it make what resource we're using from time to time? But yeah. So what else can I tell you about this? You see, but you can see that he's created something of a catfish here, a bit of a feeling of a monster. But the whole thing is underwater. So here we are with what would be mermaids. They're simply nudes underwater, and having a lot of fun. I doubt that he posed them underwater to get a nice impressionist painting out of it, guys. I'm being silly, of course. I'm being silly. Oh, the ideas of music, I guess. All right. So let me show you closer so you can see the broken color handling of this stuff here. Now, one of the expectations is that you'll have broken color all through every passage, but if you're showing it, the rock might be lumpy, but you don't expect skin to show up as textural. And areas like this, texture is fine, suggesting some joint between the seaweed and the water and the even movement of water. But you can see what he's done in every area. He's actually hunting for red, yellow, and blue. In these areas, you're just simply more cautious about keeping the values closer so that you can get red, yellow, and blue, but you don't wind up with textural skin. Something I think that even Monet does in that. I'm trying to picture I could be wrong, but I think that shows up in that woman wearing a kimono painting. Nevertheless, this is fun. This is no end of fun. Painting out of your head using impressionist light, impressionist color, light. Life is amazing. The life he's bringing to these things. So here again, how whimsical can it get, and what could be more appropriate to the impressionist to the impressionist, sorry, Mr. Producer, to the impressionist palette. And the idea, as I said, of lots of chroma, but fairly shallow value range. And here you are living in a place that feels like, as I said, it's like a fantasy. It's like it's living in your imagination. And yet it's, if you handle it differently, it will just be another painting of somebody in the sunshine. I was thinking a little bit of Zorn and his handling. You don't get any idea in the Zorn's paintings that there's a whimsical thing going on. So I really, truly commend Spear for the way he brings impressionist unity to his whimsy. And then there's this one. Now, I think these last two are both owned by, am I right, or all three of these, that fish one, are all owned by Whistler House. It's again where I said we were having a retrospective show for the next month or so at Whistler House. All you have to do is get online and I think it's WH Museum, Whistler House Museum, possibly. Again, you can see the marks, even the types of birds, herons or whatever, of that you're familiar with in Frank Benson. And he's using this stuff in such a whimsical way. A lot of times the kids in the interpretation of when you use the nude itself, the figure looks like it's dated and that sort of thing, maybe because of the haircut and that sort of thing. But he manages to keep away from that, and in no significant way is that a problem. Paxton's imaginative work doesn't have that same quality. It's a considerably more demanding approach from the point of view of interpreting nature. And he winds up with what somebody once titled "The Women in Swimmin'," with the Navy picture, because it looks like, the girls down the street from 1940 or whatever. So that's it. That's the visit with the imaginative impressionist. Remember, it's the impressionist palette, and he's obviously using, probably has drawings from goats and things like that. He's obviously using nudes, figures, posing on some level, but they are also clearly just a vehicle for him, but his figure drawings are all his own. They're all really his own creation, much in the same way as I would say about a Malay, that the figures aren't, he didn't sit there and pose a figure and then copy it down, because you don't wind up with the same unity of whimsy even in the gestures. You can't do that by copying nature that closely. So that's the whimsical side of Impressionism. But even isn't the color whimsical? I mean, it's just lovely to have him use all those crazy, rich oranges down in this fish here, which aren't weird at all. They're just part of the system, all the oranges. In fact, it's almost as if all the oranges are just plowing in through here, right? And picking up again. But that's just in the nature of what happens when you get a color going that you can see, that you're looking for where to pick it up again. This painting does remind me a little bit of the Paxton model, where he says if it's in your brush, see where else you might put it. Now, he wasn't talking whimsically. He was talking about where else you might find it in nature in front of you. But I rather like this imaginative mode. If you say, I got a fish with these golden little fins on it, then where else might you find that color? And pick up that theme. So what a delight these are. No, I'm not selling anything. It's just a wonderful chance. For those of you who know Maxwell Parrish, he was able to get us into his world. In his case, seriously, photographically, he managed to get us over into a whole other world through his use of flat, blue, atmospheric shadows and that sort of thing, and very crisp cutouts of everything. And he created his own world. And for the imaginative painter, there's nothing more important than making your own world, making the world that you're making up out of your head have its own unity, unlike any other, that doesn't simply look like you made something from nature, but looks like it's complete in itself. It would just be like writing a good short story or some other kind of fiction, especially fantasy, when you really have to get the viewer or the reader to believe it. So, all right, I think that's a good place to stop. I want to thank our Linda J, Ilya, Adam, Stephen, and Pascal again today for that support. Really nice. And I hope that some of you guys can make it over to the Whistler House show. I'm doing a lecture over there. Whew, is it Thursday this week? No, Thursday next week. A week from Thursday. But the opening is this coming Saturday, the 3rd of June. It is Saturday, isn't it? I'm the last guy you want doing this. So hopefully you guys can get over to the Whistler House show. And this exercise is a bit of an opportunity for me to tell you about it. All right. Well, I hope you all have a very nice painting week, successful and productive and developmentally wonderful. All right. See you next time.